This is MEELive's Deep Dive, where we dive into a story shaking up the world. Over the past 4 months, Gaza's humanitarian situation has taken a turn for the worse. But the presence of a US-backed aid scheme has kept the worst international condemnation at bay. It began on the 2nd of March when Israel commenced a siege on Gaza, barring all aid and trade from entering the Strip, before resuming full-scale military attacks. 11 weeks of mounting starvation led at first to unprecedented global outrage. On the 19th of May, a joint statement by the UK, France, and Canada invited the fiercest condemnation from US allies yet.
It's difficult to see how denying humanitarian assistance to a civilian population can be compatible with international humanitarian law. Though it's important to say I could have been a little clearer in the House on Monday, our position remains that Israel's actions in Gaza are a clear risk of breaching international humanitarian law.
Netanyahu's new aid plan for Gaza was announced that same day. But in his Hebrew language announcement only, the Israeli Prime Minister said the reason he wished to avoid famine in Gaza was specifically to appease foreign allies.
יש תנאי אחד הכרחי. אסור לנו להגיע למצב של רעב, גם מבחינה עניינית, גם מבחינה מדינית. פשוט לא יתמכו בנו, לא נוכל להשלים את משימת הניצחון.
This new aid plan would allow a trickle of UN supplies to enter Gaza, but distributions would primarily be handled by a privately run organization dubbed the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, or GHF. This scheme has eased international pressure on Israel, but it has not relieved the suffering of Palestinians, with nearly 500,000 now facing catastrophic food insecurity and 10,000 children suffering from acute malnutrition, according to the UN Food Programme and World Food Programme and UN. On the 27th of May, the GHF officially launched operations. It concentrated all aid in 4 sites on Gaza's southern border, each under full control of Israeli forces, enclosed with barbed wire and mounds of earth, and manned by US mercenaries. The international humanitarian sector immediately raised alarm. UN spokesperson James Elder told MEELive at the time this did not appear to be an aid operation at all, but something far more sinister.
The capacity isn't there. The distribution points are not there. There's no discussion about, medicines, anesthetics. What we know is that they seem to be a private sector, not a charity, a private sector organization designed to support the forced displacement of people from the north to the south against every single humanitarian principle, and utterly unworkable.
In the 6 weeks since it launched, deadly shootings at these aid sites have occurred almost every day. To date, over 700 Palestinians have been killed and more than 4,000 wounded while seeking aid. Whistleblowers from the US contractor confirmed American employees had been given free license to open fire on those gathered. At time of airing, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation did not respond to our request for comment. Gaza local Mohammed Shahada told us Palestinians now had to battle between hunger and life or death fears about collecting aid.
Every single person I spoke to in Gaza said one has to be completely insane, out of their minds, to step a foot in those heavily militarized concentration camps that Israel is setting up in Rafah, where you have to pass through numerous checkpoints with Israeli genocidal soldiers teaming around it, waiting to ambush whoever they want. And you have to pass through facial recognition technology, fingerprinting, different layers of screening and vetting with undisclosed criteria. And at the end of it, you have to literally walk from Beit Hanun, 41 kilometers to Rafah, to pick up a package that would weigh 20 to 40 kilos, and then 41 kilometers back under constant bombardment, thinking that you will make it back alive. Nobody in Gaza thinks that if you step a foot in those compounds, you will make it back home alive on your feet. Either you will be killed on the way, you will be kidnapped by the Israeli soldiers, you will be blackmailed into collaborating with Israel, or the food that you would get would be looted on the way.
Now, both those past two speakers, James Elder and Mohammed Shahada, flagged the southern locations of the GHF distributions signalled a dangerous aspect of this aid scheme. This aspect of Israel's aid plan now appears to be intensifying after Defense Minister Israel Katz announced plans to establish a so-called humanitarian city in the south of the Strip. He said he has instructed the army to build a camp on the ruins of Rafah, to which all Gaza's population can be forcibly transferred. So what is the true nature of the US-Israeli aid scheme, and should it have silenced foreign leaders' condemnation? Joining us now is Médecins Sans Frontières emergency coordinator in Khan Yunis, which has seen some of the deadliest GHF aid massacres. Aita Zabal Gogias-Koa, welcome to MEE Live.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Now, you've been operating in Gaza since the GHF began. What can you tell us about what goes on at these distributions?
Well, we do have two small primary health care centers very close to the 3 points that they are 3 distribution points that they are in the south in Rafah. So we, as well as other NGOs and other organizations, we've been receiving deaths and wounded one day after another, all the days since the 27th of May that they opened those sites. In a very small place like ours, in less than a month, we got 22 dead people and 548 wounded, which is a small quantity or a small proportion of the people who has been arriving to other hospitals as the UK Med or ICRC or the Ministry of Health Nasser Hospital. It has been systematically all the days just happened something.
Khan Yunis, where you're calling from, has seen some of the deadliest massacres. There was one incident where 51 Palestinians were shot dead and over 200 wounded. Can you describe what you experience at the hospital when these deadly incidents occur? What is the nature of the injuries? What are the eyewitness testimonies that you're hearing?
Well, in this case, also there has been like 2 or 3 times that people who was not going to these distribution sites but waiting for food in the way of the food convoys, they've been attacked by Israeli forces, and they created really large massacres like the one that you are mentioning of 51 people. The other day also 17 people, including one former colleague of MSF that he was also looking for food, etc. This is completely overburdens and overloads the hospitals in a way that it's difficult to imagine, because we are talking about receiving hundreds of people in the space of 2-3 hours, and doctors and nurses obliged to try to discharge the people who are better in order to try to save the ones that they are a little bit more injured. And it's a complete chaos, and it's very difficult to because once in a year when something like that happens in a normal hospital, because it's a bus accident or something like that in Europe, you can be ready for that. But this happening one day after another is just it's exhausting all the medical supplies. Is creating a complete disruption of the services of the hospitals, and also the staff is completely exhausted and horrified.
Can you tell from the injuries what is happening on the ground? Because we've had responses time and again from the Israeli military that whenever they fire on Palestinians seeking aid, they're doing so in response to attack. They're doing so, in self-defense. Yes. Can you tell from the injuries whether this is true?
Well, I'm not in the place, but we can listen from here, and what we listen from here, it's always the same kind of weapons shooting. I mean, there is no confrontation. There is not something like you heard somebody shooting and the others answering. No, there is always the same pattern of shooting from the site that we are in, which is like around 4 kilometers from the distribution sites. The thing that it is, whoever it is, the contractors or the IDF soldiers, whoever it is shooting, it's clearly pointing at the people, because from the 22 dead that we got, all of them, they had chest of abdominal area wounds. So they are not shots in the air. They are not shots to try to disperse a crowd. There are shots to against the people, and the rest they are in non-vital places, but they are in the arms, in the legs, etc. So I mean, like the people who is shooting, they are shooting to the people to try to kill.
And since this aid scheme first launched at the end of May, have you noticed a trend? Have you noticed an uptick in the casualties you're seeing as a result of these attacks? And how are you coping with this quantity of injuries with such limited medical supplies?
Well, I mean, that's the issue. I mean, like, while in a normal day, you could have, like, maybe 30 to 40 to 60 dead in the south of Gaza, for example, for airstrikes and military operations. During a lot of those days in May and June, we were getting more people from the distribution sites than from let's say, from the results of the war itself. I mean, it's a complete, it's a complete pervert, system. It's a political and military operation designed by the U.S. and by the Israeli government in order to try to replace the impartial humanitarian aid, and it's just, the scheme is deadly. It's ineffective. It's treating with no dignity the people, and we are asking to be immediately dismantled, because this should be done by international impartial humanitarian actors that treat the people with dignity, and they do it with adequate food and adequate composition. Before these 4 sites, they were established 2 months ago, because it has been like 2 months of virtually no supplies into the strip. World Food Program and other partners, they were managing 400 sites to distribute the food. You cannot substitute 400 sites with four places which are in a combat area and making distributions at 2:00 in the morning.
What do you make of the response of the international community? Because the condemnation that you have said that MSF is calling for the immediate dismantling of this operation, we haven't heard that from many key allies of the US, of Israel. What do you make of their response?
Well, I can talk for the humanitarian very clearly, for the humanitarian house world and in the community, that they've been very clearly condemning this kind of a scheme, from the UN Secretary General to a lot of NGOs and a lot of actors that are working in the health in Gaza, including the Ministry of Health, and then we are looking and we are asking to the governments to not to support and to denounce this scheme, which is what I say is pervert and is really how is it? This is no way to continue how is trying to feed people with this way.
See, in the first few weeks of Israel's aid blockade of Gaza, we saw outrage mounting among global leaders. The UK, Canada, France signed a joint statement condemning Israel. But since the launch of this new aid scheme, this has largely died down. And I wonder if that's because, the facts aren't getting out there. Do you think that leaders have been convinced by the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, by the scheme, that their concerns are being addressed? Or do you think that they're being deceived?
No, I think that they have been deceived, and the people is, I don't think that politicians, are buying this scheme. I mean, probably it's because the political momentum, they are not allowing, that to go further, because they are maybe looking into the results of the negotiations for the ceasefire, etc., etc. But I'm sure that, they're really alone. They're really alone. The Trump government and the Israeli government are really alone trying to push this scheme, and it's because it's a monstrosity, it's a depravity, and it will not work. It will not work.
Now, Reuters reported on Monday that the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation had proposed establishing camps it described as humanitarian transit areas, both inside and potentially outside the Strip, to house Palestinians who've been moved from the north of Gaza. At the same time, we're hearing from Israel's defense minister that there are plans to establish a humanitarian city on the ruins of Rafah in order to forcibly transfer all of Gaza's population to the south. I wonder if you've heard anything about this deliberate weaponization of aid to move Gaza's population and facilitate a clearing of the land.
Yeah, I mean, like, we are listening to those reports, and it seems that it has been not only a political operation in order to push further the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza, but also it is incredible that it's a huge business. I mean, like, everybody's thinking about the business that they can do with the misery and the dignity of those people that they have been suffering for a year and a half, and yeah. So the reports are there. I mean, we don't know. We didn't see anything yet. We know that one of the distribution sites that it was open, probably one of the deadliest one, it has been closed like a week ago, and there are works happening there, but we don't know anything else. So let's see if it's clear. If they try to do that, if it's clearly that it's with the intention of continue the ethnic cleansing of the Gazans towards Rafah, very clearly, yes.
Ayatollah Zabel Gogyazkoa, thank you for joining us on MEELive.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for reporting about Gaza.
Now stay tuned as we speak to comedian and satirist Bassem Youssef about the movement to rebuild Palestine's health sector.